Have you ever constructed a persona party as usual, but then you have that one party member that you just never acknowledge? Like, yeah, I could put Morgana on my team, but literally everybody else does his job, but better. Well, just for fun, how about we take a deeper look into the party members to find out which party member is the absolute worst in each Persona game. And the funny thing about that, despite Persona 1 and 2 not really having selectable party members, like 3, 4, and 5, at least in Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, we're gonna try to include them, at least mainly just Persona 1. With that being said, in my opinion, I would say the absolute worst party members are Brown from Persona 1, Koromaru in all versions of Persona 3, Yosuke in Persona 4, and finally Morgana in mostly all his versions, even including some of the spin-offs. Well, except for Strikers maybe. On that note, let's start by taking a look at His Holiness Brown. See, Persona 1 is more of a special case when it comes to party members. In Persona 1, every single party member can change personas, just like the main character, which allows pretty much all of them to be just as versatile as the main character in some scenarios. However, I'd go ahead and argue that they're different enough to the point where you can actually tier them. And since we are tiering them, I would say Brown is the absolute worst. See, there's not a lot of things that differentiate the party members of Persona 1. There's the usual things that you would expect, like the starter personas, the weapons like the swords, spears, etc. But one thing that's specific to Persona 1 mainly is the affinity. See, because Persona 1 characters can switch to any persona, that means that every single character in Persona 1, at least mainly the party members, needed to have an arcana. Well, the main character, Boy with Earrings, mainly has the Emperor Arcana, and these arcanas give them 4 different affinities with different personas. You have the best affinity, the good affinity, the bad affinity, and the worst affinity. See, the best affinity gives the character lower SP costs, while good is pretty much the normal SP cost. But the primary problem comes with the bad affinity and the worst affinity. See, in my experience, when a character has a bad affinity, they're completely unable to use the skills of certain personas. For example, when I was trying to equip the main character with the death persona Onko, I don't know how you say that, you know me. When I equipped that persona on them and I tried to use magic, I was completely unable to use any magic with that persona, making the persona damn near completely useless. Now I'd say Brown is the worst because he has the Justice Arcana. See, the Justice Arcana has the Chariot Arcana, and that primarily has the bad affinity. And usually, Chariot personas are the damn best. Until late game, Chariot personas are the easiest personas to grab the Megiddo skill cards, or nuclear skills. In case you're unfamiliar with the franchise, the Megiddo skills are some of the strongest skills in the franchise, and that's absolutely no different in Persona 1. You can get your first Megiddo skill through Gozo Tenno, which is a level 18 Chariot persona, and that tier 1 Megiddo skill can carry you throughout the entire game, except for the very, very last dungeon. And simply put, Brown can't use it because he's mid as hell, and he's Brown. Who likes Brown? I mean, you'd have to hear that "ow, no joke" thing every few seconds every time he dies. Imagine having to hear that every 2 seconds in a 50-hour game. Good lord. Now, Brown being ass is one thing. See, nobody really liked them anyway. But making Koromaru ass is an absolute sin, I'm not gonna lie with you. Yeah, coming up as the next worst party member in the franchise, it's gonna be Koromaru from Persona 3. I know we all love the little fella, but in the Persona games do him absolutely no favors when it comes to his skill sets. For starters, in the original version of Persona 3, he could only attack with Agi and Mudo spells, and we all already know how ass Mudo spells is. And Junpei surprisingly uses Agi spells far better than Koromaru ever had a chance to. Really, Koromaru's only saving grace is Masukujaka, which in very, niche scenarios can come in clutch, but for the most part, nah, he's just straight ass. At the very least, Persona 3 Reload attempted to remedy this a little bit by giving bro a lot more versatility. For starters, he gains even more buffing spells like Revolution and debuffing spells like Debilitate. He's fantastic in Reload compared to his FES counterpart. It's just that unfortunately every other character was buffed just as much, while also having pretty broken FES counterparts, except for Junpei. But even in very specific scenarios, Junpei could be kinda sorta good, but the same can't be said for Koromaru and FES. What's hilarious about this too, and massive spoiler warning for episode Aigis, so skip a little bit ahead if you haven't played it yet, but in the answer, Koromaru is a boss battle, and somehow he gets a completely buffed moveset that just makes him almost completely unrecognizable from his player counterpart. Like Koromaru leaves with Junpei for a few minutes, comes back, and suddenly he has Mind Charge, Mega Eidolon, bro even got Brave Blade like it had that the entire time. And the hilarious part is once he rejoins the party, he just, magically forgets all these moves. It's like that for every character in the original party too. Let's not even get into somebody like Akihiko. Bro pulls up with Power Charge, Mind Charge, Added Pupil, and Gigantic Fist, and the Mega Eidolon, and slaps your girl. What are you gonna do, bro? But yeah, unfortunately, everybody's favorite pup is Straight Cheeks. I mean, under the right scenario, he's still pretty fun to use, especially in Reload because of how 30s are gained. In episode Aigis, 2 30s out the gate is pretty damn useful. But that's just Koromaru, he's still best boy at the end of the day. But who's not best boy in Persona 4 is Yosuke. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, why not smack that subscribe button? Drop your boy a nice like real quick for some extra flavor. These videos do take fairly long to make and it would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, coming up next after Koromaru is the funny man Yosuke. Now that I think about it, the Magician Arcanas just have some weird kind of curse. Like Junpei almost made a list if it wasn't for Reload breaking that curse and making him one of the most broken party members of the entire game. But yeah, Yosuke is primarily Cheeks in Persona 4. Primarily just because he doesn't really have a role. See, the problem with Yosuke is just that he's way too divided in what he can do. Aside from him, all the other party members in Persona 4 have fairly defined roles. Like you have Yukiko as a dedicated healer, you have Teddy as the buff and debuff magic wizard, and then you have Chie and Kanji who are mainly physical crit gods. And then you have Naoto who has basically every magic spell in the game. And then Yosuke kinda just exists. He has a little bit of physical here with Brave Blade, a little bit of magic there with Garu skills, some healing but some pretty trash one, and the worst buff in the game, that being Tsukukaja. See, he's just a little too versatile for his own good. He's a jack of trades character in a game where everybody has a pretty defined role that they stick to very clearly. It was like he was almost created to just be immediately replaced the moment that you got Kanji. That's not to say that he isn't usable, but you just be putting yourself at a massive disadvantage using him outside of very specific scenarios. In terms of Persona 4, really the only good thing he can do is use Tsukujaka, since Naoto uses his own slash and wind skills far better than he does. And if you want Tsukujaka that bad, just use it on one of your personas instead of wasting an entire party member slot for just one skill. Unfortunately, that Magician's curse doesn't just end at Persona 4. Coming in our final spot is Morgana from Persona 5. You see, on the surface, Morgana has fairly decent versatility, having wind skills, some debuffs, and very good healing. Maybe in a different Persona game, he would be a pretty good party member, but this is Persona 5 we're talking about here. And as everybody knows, Persona 5 has one of the most disgustingly broken casts in any Alice JRPG game. And compared to every other party member, Morgana falls incredibly short. So you have Anne, just a tactical nuke, you have Ryuji, Yusuke, and Haru, and Kazumi, all physical gods that will just crit and devour enemies for breakfast like they're the hydrogen bomb and the enemies are the coughing babies. And then you have Makoto, who is quite frankly speaking, the most disgusting healer in the entire franchise. Bro, who decided to give a healer who already had just fantastic buff skills an all enemy debilitate? And then Morgana is just there. Pretty much all he can do is just rely on his lucky punch, which are some of the worst crit moves in the game. You'd have better luck trying to crit with one-shot kill with Haru than lucky punch. The hilarious part too is, at least in the Megaten wiki, Morgana's special miracle skills were actually nerfed for some reason. Like they already decided that these bad moves weren't bad enough and had to make them even worse. Take for example the main one, Miracle Punch, which for some reason has a lower crit rate. But what's hilarious about that is that for some reason, they just refuse to let bro be broken in any way. Even his 3rd tier skill, the miracle skill, is still ass. You see, it still has the potential to knock down all enemies, but it has an even lower crit rate than the other moves. This is despite every other party member having disgusting moves. Like Anne having an all party concentrate, Makoto having an all enemy debilitate, a full party heat riser from Yosuke, but nah, Morgana can only have a 40% crit rate. So yeah, that's the video. Brown, Koromaru, Yosuke, and Morgana, all characters who are just straight cheeks. The type of character that you would never want to use unless if you just really like that character. Except in Brown's case, of course, in case you didn't know that there were any other party members, which is pretty valid, but he's still ass nonetheless. In Morgana's case specifically, it's still funny to think that one of the more annoying characters in Persona 5 also happens to be the worst. Ain't that something? Now you may think that it's perfectly fine that these characters are mid, since they're pretty early game characters, except for Koromaru of course. You know, it's like how your starter in Pokemon is bound to get replaced eventually, or how you fuse away your Pixie the first chance you get. Except for Nocturne. But on that note, what's funny about that is that each Persona game might have that ass character at the start, but they all still have that one really damn good character who's really good, if not broken, throughout the entire game, like Yukari, Chie, and Ryuji. So it's kinda weird how characters like Junpei, Yosuke, and Morgana get the short end of the stick, but while the other characters proceed to be good throughout the entire game. But regardless, I'm done yapping. If you enjoyed the video, why not drop me a nice like real quick? Maybe subscribe if you found the video enjoyable. But either way, I'm out of here. I hope y'all have a good day, cause God knows I want one. I'll catch you guys later.
T-shirt.